Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Dan.
And I'm Marlene.
This is the 15th episode of our podcast, which was formerly called the Molly Mish podcast. But if you follow us on social media, you would have seen that we're rebranding this podcast to work with our Freely Roaming project. Our Freely Roaming project is something we started a little less than a year ago, and it's a blog, it's a YouTube channel, and it's a newsletter. It's about our life on the road and what we've learned, and our goal is to teach other people of all the ins and outs of this lifestyle. Rather than sharing all that stuff with our Molly Mish, which is a documentation of our life, our personal stuff that we want to look back on later in the future, we get asked a lot of questions. So we decided to take this opportunity to start podcasting again, but rebrand and merge our Molly Mish podcast with the Freely Roaming project.
Drum roll, what's the new name?
Oh, I thought I already said it.
Did you? I don't think so.
Yeah, okay, it's called the Freely Roaming Podcast with Molly Mish. So we're not going to get rid of the old episodes. We have 14 episodes, and for the most part, they talk about our experiences, and we'll talk a little bit about that in this episode too. Mm-hmm. But this one is also going to give you guys some tips and tricks, how-tos, and stuff like that. And the other thing that's different is that we're doing this one on video. Mm-hmm. Right now, I don't know if we're going to do this video in its entirety yet on YouTube or anything like that. But definitely the podcast will have an audio version that you guys can just listen to. But I think our plan is to have segments of this podcast in video form uploaded to our Freely Roaming YouTube channel.
You can splice in B-roll and then us talking, and hopefully it's informative for everybody.
Yeah, because some people have told us that long-form podcast in video form is kind of nice because they can just turn it on their TV and have it in the background as they're doing stuff around the house. So it's interesting because I do the same thing. I do that too. Especially if it's just stuff that you sort of know, but you like to learn more about. You just kind of keep it in the background so you can pick up little tips. So we're hoping to figure this stuff out in the next few episodes. But for now, for episode 15, we want to welcome you guys. Maybe some of you guys are new to Freely Roaming. Maybe some of you guys are new to Molly Mish. And maybe some of you guys are new to both. So I want to welcome all of you. And today we have 5 topics we want to discuss. And I think the first topic seems like a natural one when you do a rebrand like this. A lot of people have found our Freely Roaming YouTube channel and blog through just social media or search engines. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that don't know our background, we want to just do a quick introduction of who we are, what we've done, and what kind of traveling we've been doing for the last over a decade.
So our story started in 2008. We had one kid. She was a few months old when we decided that we wanted to show her things. So we started off with an Airstream. Like, we had something before that, but I think it kind of confuses everybody.
Well, the big difference between us and many people that are doing this these days is that we didn't go into this lifestyle at the beginning knowing that this is what we wanted to do. We thought we were just taking a big trip. And I think a lot of people do that now. They say, hey, we're going to just take a 2-3 months trip across country and go check some stuff out. People that are deciding to live life on the road these days kind of go through this whole purging process, and they go through the selling the house, buying a car, figuring out what they want to do, build it out just the way they like it. We did it sort of the slow roll progression kind of thing. We started out, like Marlene said, we started out with a small little modern teardrop trailer called the Tab. And that was sort of our way to get our toes in the water, to test out what this lifestyle is like. Actually, just to test out what RV traveling is like, because we never traveled in RVs before. And when we when we took our first trip, that's when we got hooked. And this is back in 2008. And we only had one kid. And after that, we decided this is what we wanted to do. We were already working from home.
Mm-hmm.
So
we said, why stay home?
Yeah.
The road can be our
when
home.
we came back from our little trip, we were like, you know, it's not great to be stuck here. We don't have to be here. So why do we do it? And we have this camper out there. So we decided to, you know, upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
We probably didn't have to upgrade, but back then, it felt like the right thing to do because we're like, oh, it's not possible that a family of 3 can live in a small 14-foot thing. But, you know, some of you guys know, we live in a van now with a family of 5, a teenager and 2 that are going to be teenager in a few years. So,
but I think we knew that we were going to have more than one kid. So I think we were just kind of thinking about the future.
When we got our big camper, when we decided to kind of go full time, we decided to go with a 25-foot Airstream. So that's kind of the vehicle that we're known by for many, many years. Between 2008 and 2015, we were living in our 25-foot Airstream trailer. And that went from 3 people all the way up to 5 people. And we traveled...
Plus a cat. We had a cat.
Plus our cat, right.
We had a black cat named Yoda.
She was with us the entire time until the week after it came to Europe in 2018. Mm-hmm. So for those 7 years in the Airstream, what we learned is that layout means everything. And, you know, we'll have a segment all about layout. But this one, we want to talk about just, you know, those 7 years, it really kind of, you know, got us intrigued. And towards the end of that, it's like we decided to travel. Like our goal wasn't to travel and go to every country in the world or visit every state in the country even, or, you know, visit anywhere else outside of places that seem interesting. Mm-hmm. We didn't have like a goal, but we just wanted to explore. And I think, you know, this will go into like overlanding versus full-time traveling versus RV living versus van dwelling and stuff like that. But, you know, after our 7th year, we went to Alaska, and just turns out when you travel long enough, you're going to end up going to all the states. Mm-hmm. So Alaska was our 49th state that we went to. We haven't taken the kids to Hawaii yet, but we've been ourselves. But we've driven to 49 states with all of our kids and our cat. And after that, we realized, well, we're not done with this. We want to keep going. So that's when we downsized to a 4-wheel camper. And we took that 4-wheel camper all over Mexico. Mm-hmm. First in Baja, then we crossed on a ferry from La Paz to Mazatlan. And then we went all through mainland Mexico down to Oaxaca and, you know, east over. We didn't quite make it to the Caribbean Sea or the Gulf of Mexico, but we were briefly in Veracruz driving through. Mm-hmm. So after that, the original plan for that was that we were going to go down south, but we had some temporary import permit issues with the vehicle, with the 4-wheel camper that we were in. Mm-hmm. We ended up having to come back to the U.S., and then we decided, you know what, while we're here now, let's go up to Canada and see as much of Canada as we can. Mm-hmm. So we've done Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland. Of course, we did BC, Alberta, and Yukon when we were driving to Alaska in 2015. Mm-hmm. And we did all across, went to every province in Canada. And then that's when we decided, okay, we want to keep going. You know, where do we go next? Mm-hmm. We felt like we've done North America pretty good justice by exploring for 10 years. So then we decided, okay, let's go to Europe. Let's ship to Europe. This is where we are now. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense because Marlene's family's from Croatia. So we would have a home base here and we'd be able to explore Europe. And Croatia is actually a pretty good spot to be because it's fairly central. It's not east. It's not as far east as like Bulgaria or Romania that borders the Black Sea. And it's not west like the UK, France, or Spain, where, you know, it takes a long time to get across to the other side. So Croatia actually allows us to kind of explore all of it from here. So that's what we've been doing. And now it's going on almost 12 full years. We're going to be starting our 13th year in November. So that's sort of the introduction and traveling background for us as travelers. For those of you that have never heard the story, feels like we've said the story like 1,000 times to different podcasts, different interviewers, and everybody. But now we've got one for Freely Roaming.
From that experiences we had in the U.S. and traveling to Canada, Mexico, shipping overseas, and raising children on the road and homeschooling, or what we call road schooling or world schooling now. We have all of these different type of experiences, and so I think it's fun to share what we learned and answer questions that we get online all the time in this type of format.
All right, so now let's move on to the second topic we want to talk about in this episode 15 podcast.
Yeah, there was a big gap between episode 13 and
14.
14 we said we're back, right?
So we did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We had a gap there too.
Right. So there's a gap between 13. I think that ended in beginning of 2019.
Yeah, we did 14 as a wrap up of our first year in Europe.
13.
Are you sure 14 is our last
mini.
Right, 13, right. Okay. So 14 really isn't a full episode. But 13 was the one where we wrapped up our first year in Europe. Okay, so in this one, we're going to talk about where we traveled to and what it was like to travel around Europe and Morocco in 2020.
Okay, so the beginning of January, we were in Croatia, in Split, getting all our paperwork for Dan's Croatian residency resolved. And once you got your new ID card is when we decided it was time to start exploring again, to leave Croatia.
Yeah, so the way that we're able to travel across Europe, we don't have to deal with the Schengen zone. So there's a Schengen zone rule, and we'll have a video about that. So for us, Marlene and the kids have citizenship, and I was able to apply for residency, but unfortunately that has to renew. That's only good for 1 year, and I have to renew every year for the first 5 years.
Yeah, because you're a third country national instead of an EU citizen.
Right, third country national means from a citizen of any country outside of the European Union.
Correct.
So the application is not that big of a problem, and the first 2 years we ran into some obstacles, but I think the biggest issue for us is that we have to start the renewal process 90 days before it expires, which means we have to be here 90 days before it expires. So rather than having a full 12 months to travel, we only have nine months to travel.
Maybe 60 days, because we didn't do it yet, unless we're behind. But October.
Okay, right.
October.
60 days.
So it's
60
coming
days.
up. It's coming up for us.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers being thrown around with this. Like 90 days is the Schengen thing, 180 days is the car thing.
Yeah.
But our residency renewal, yeah, you're right. It's 60 days. So we have to be here 60 days before, which means my residency was issued in the middle of December, the first year we came, 2018. So I have to be here and start the renewal process in the middle of October every year. So that means we have to be back here October every year. But of course, this year we came back much, much earlier because of the pandemic. But when we left last year, we got our residency renewal processed, and we don't actually get our official cards in the mail until early January after it's accepted. So it takes 2 or 3 weeks, and with Christmas, New Year's in between, it can be delayed a little bit. But anyways, we left Croatia first week of January, and we started going west went into Slovenia and pretty quickly into Italy. And we drove across northern Italy. We visited Venice.
That's where Ava wanted to spend her 13th birthday. That
Right.
was her choice.
Her birthday, second week of January, was in Venice, which is amazing because it's so quiet, so slow, nobody's there. And we had the whole place to ourselves. It was a little cold.
Yeah. And thinking back, like northern Italy had the first Corona outbreak, and we were there probably 2 weeks before it
Well,
got
it
dangerous.
probably was already there.
Yeah.
You know, so we don't really know. I mean, we never gotten tested, and we did feel like everybody took turns getting headaches and stomach aches and
I were in Morocco, yeah.
fevers and stuff like that. So we don't really know if we actually got it or not back then. I mean, none of us had any big symptoms, so I think we were fine.
Could have been anything.
Could have been anything. Still, like, I know people that are getting sick now and all they think about is corona, but back then we didn't know about it. We only knew in January this was still in China and it wasn't in Europe yet that we knew of. But we were fine. We all recovered. We drove across northern Italy and went to the south of France. We crossed in the south of France. We took about 50% toll roads and 50% back roads.
It was really cold, and so we wanted to explore the southern side of France, but it's just too cold. So we kept driving and driving.
Well, Italy was actually cool because remember, Italy, there were a bunch of parking spaces that have electrical plugs. Yeah. So we were able to run our
mostly free.
Yeah, right? Mostly free. We were able to run our electric heater, even though we have our diesel heater now, which works really great. But in Italy, we were able to plug in and use our electric heater, which is better for us because it saves our fuel, of course. Also saves our battery because even with a diesel heater, it still uses a little bit of electricity to run the fan. And also the little cheap, like $20 electric heater with a thermostat on it just regulates the heat so much better than, because we don't really know where the Webasto temperature sensor is. It doesn't seem, we haven't exactly dialed it in back then when we were using it, because we got it installed during the summer in Romania before that, and we didn't use it at all until we got to Italy. So Italy was really cool. We went through Italy. We've probably spent 2 weeks there, but we really don't feel like we've seen Italy enough, so that we have to go back, even though we are counting Italy as a country that we spend time in. There's so much more of it that we haven't seen, so we'll go back, especially into the south when it's okay again. So crossing Italy into France, we
went to Provence.
Went to San Remo, which is really cool spot on the border of Italy and France on the Italy side. We used to camp around the water, remember?
No.
San Remo, there's a soccer field.
Oh.
And right along the water, there's a whole bunch of RVs parking. Yeah.
Like, this is where the Italians come to camp.
Right.
So we don't see Italians that much around Europe. But
you see very, very few Italian campers outside of Italy. But in Italy, they're everywhere. So Italy's big, and there's a lot of coastline. There's a lot of great things to see. So it's not surprising that, they don't have to go outside of Italy for great camping. But from San Remo, we crossed into France, in the south of France, driving towards Nice. And before that, we went to Monaco.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really crowded, very expensive. We couldn't find a place to park with the van. So we basically just did a loop, drove through, went down switchback roads in very posh neighborhoods.
And we forgot to turn off we forgot to put our phones in airplane mode.
Our phones don't roam in Monaco.
Which we...
So we got dinged, I don't know how much, $20-$30 for that. Just for half a day drive. Or
just for your
half
GPS.
An hour drive.
Yeah, half an hour, just your GPS.
Right, because we turn our regular phones off.
Imagine if the kids were streaming YouTube.
Oh my God. Yeah, we would be broke. So we didn't stop or stay in Monaco. I don't even know how easy it would be to stay there, but I feel like we had enough of Monaco.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, we just popped back out, and we're back in France again. And then in France, it was really cold too, the south of France. And we had just heard so much about driving through the south of France and roadside rest stops and people eating, going to the bathroom, or we know to never sleep in these roadside rest stops in France and Spain because we heard so many horror stories about break-ins. So I just remember being really nervous every time we stopped on the side of the highway.
Yeah, and I also remember if we wanted to go to the grocery store or you went to go into like some of the
Into
Taco
the gas
Bells
station.
we saw, one of us would stay in the car. It just felt like we were so paranoid.
But there were no Taco Bells in France. It
No,
was
in Spain.
Yeah.
But it was just one of us stayed in the car.
Yeah, I don't know if we were like overly cautious or if we needed to be, but I'm glad that we did because, you know, we didn't have any problems with break-ins or anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's also more common in the high season when there are a lot of tourists. And this is late January, so there were
low.
Super low. No tourists.
Yeah.
We did have trouble trying to pay tolls on the French highway. Remember, they wouldn't accept our credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had to like come on the speaker in this unmanned toll booth and figure out how to get my payment to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we didn't have enough euros.
Sorry for all the cars behind us.
Oh my God, we were stuck there for so long and we couldn't turn around. We couldn't reverse. But we finally figured it out. But in France, we stayed, we didn't stay too long. I'd say we probably drove through in like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, we did stop at, we did one of those French Passion, harvest hosts in the U.S. And we met our friends, their World
Towning. It was in Provence, right? The Provence region.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. We don't officially have the French Passion. If you guys don't know what French Passion is, it's basically the same thing in the U.S. as Harvest Hosts, but French Passion is just for France because there's so many little farms in France that sell, wine, cheese, whatever, like lavender. They have somebody put together a program where you can buy and stay at all these places. So when we go back to explore France, like properly for a long period of time in our van, I think we'll probably do that.
Yeah, I
do
think
French Passion.
Worth the money if we prefer not to stay at campgrounds if we don't have to. And that's another option where we can have some amenities if we need it and get drunk. Oh no, just kidding.
So that took us all the way to probably the beginning of February before we eventually cross into Spain. Mm-hmm. And we were concerned that driving from Croatia to Western Europe, meaning we had to deal with the Alps, and also what's the other mountain range that goes over?
Dolomites?
No, Dolomites it's
Italy.
part of the Alps. The Pyrenees. Yeah. Okay, so from France, we drove across the Pyrenees to get to the first place we stayed is the town of Figueres in Spain, which is where Salvador Dali is from.
Oh, that's right.
And we stayed at our first Spanish campground. I think we wanted to have electricity because of how cold it had been.
And you know what was happening? There was that crazy hurricane that ravaged Spain, and so I think we were hiding out there.
Was it a hurricane? There was some kind of storm.
Yeah, it was a big
Gloria.
storm. Yeah,
Gloria. Yeah, there was a big storm called Gloria that was on the coast of Spain, on the Mediterranean coast of Spain. So yeah, we were there. It rained a lot, and it was just a simple campground. I think it was 10 euros a night. Mm-hmm. We had a good time there, and we walked around this little town that was there. I went to a little store, tiny grocery store. Probably, it's a small village.
Yeah.
That was cool.
We tried to go to the museum the next day.
That's right, when we were trying to leave.
And we didn't look at the schedule. It was closed on Mondays.
It was raining, and the
Wah.
Dali Museum was closed. And we had to keep moving because our goal was to get to Morocco. Basically, we wanted to make our way towards Barcelona, which we did. We met up with our friends Conan and Callie there. Mm-hmm. We met Conan and Callie in Baja a couple of years before when they were driving through. They were doing their trip through the Americas. And they have since settled in Barcelona. They're from Argentina. Okay. Both of them are European. Their families are European immigrants to Argentina. Right. So I think Conan's family is from Germany. But they live in Barcelona now. And it was great to have somebody who's living there to kind of show us around. So that was really cool. Mm-hmm. And then from Barcelona, we just went down the coast. We went all the way along the coast down to Valencia. Mm-hmm. And then we found this cool little abandoned hotel that a lot of people stay near. Like there's this one abandoned hotel and it just has beaches and parking lots that kind of go all along the beach. And everybody stays there.
I think that was the first time that we felt it was warm enough. Like we found...
Yeah. We didn't exactly go swimming there, I don't think.
Because it was Gloria just messed up that whole
Right.
coast. So it was dead fish and onions all over the beach, remember?
Yeah. Some kind of
And the kids
onion vegetables.
buried all the dead fish and
There's
made
so many dead
gravestones
fish.
for them, and that was like what they did like for days.
Had we showed up there like 3 or 4 days ago, there would have been crazy storm, but then we would have gotten all this free fresh fish.
And onions.
And onions. I don't know what we make. Make a nice fish soup or something?
I guess.
Yeah. So that was Valencia, and then from Valencia we kept going south, and we went past to. There was this one kind of town that we went to. We have no idea what to expect in Spain, and down here along the town of Cartagena through Almeria to Malaga. This is like kind of the more touristy, like more. There's a lot of, I think, UK retirees that end up retiring there. Mm-hmm. So we didn't think it was going to be as crowded as it ended up being. There were a lot of cars, a lot of retirement homes, a lot of like shopping areas. So there was one stretch that wasn't too bad, but for the most part, we stayed in. We went to Puerto Almeria, which is the one thing that was really notable about that area is they grow a lot of vegetables. Mm-hmm. I remember driving towards Almeria, and then from a distance, all you see is just white covering, like tarps, plastic tarps, covering all the land, every single farm. It was like a sea of white plastic, which is kind of sad to see.
Like I think from like Google like satellite view, it's like, why is this area all white?
Yeah.
Get a snow here? Like no, it's plastic for like greenhouses for growing.
Because they grow so much of the food for all of Europe. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of sad to see. But when we got to Puerto Almeria, that was a nice little port town. We were able to pay for a spot at the marina.
Oh, that's right.
Which is nice. We stayed probably like 4 or 5 days there, and then we saw a big tall ship come into the marina, so that was kind of cool. So when we left that, we went towards Malaga, and in Malaga is where we have some other friends that we used to travel with or meet up with in North America, in the United States. So we met up with our friends Kate and Ian in Malaga, who has since settled in Spain. They are originally from the UK, have lived for decades in the US, and now they've moved back and have chosen Spain. So from there, we went down to see the Rock of Gibraltar. So technically, we've been to that part of the UK. And then from Gibraltar, we went to the ferry dock and boarded a ferry for Morocco and in Algeciras. And that was when our North African adventure started. So our plan, we crossed into Morocco.
Valentine's Day.
Okay, so pretty quickly, within about a month, within about 5 to 6 weeks, we were in Morocco after we left Croatia. Our plan was initially to go surfing down there because the surfing is really good. In fact, I had bought a new surfboard in Spain with the intention of using it in Morocco when we got there. But then the plan was, okay, it's still pretty nice inland right now, so let's go inland first, and then we go to the coast, and then from the coast we'll just slowly make our way out.
Right, we were scared it was going to be too hot, like Sahara Desert.
In the desert.
Let's wait for it to warm up there. Like no, let's go there first.
Yeah, but as you guys know now, we're inching towards the pandemic, the declaration of the pandemic, and then the soon lockdown of Europe. So we did get to see a lot of Morocco. We went through the Middle Atlas, the High Atlas, and then we went to the Sahara Desert. We got to ride camels, had some really beautiful scenery. You can see them on our Mish YouTube channel. We have some videos from there. We drove through, some really crazy roads. A lot of crazy roads. And then we ended up at this town called Tafarout, which is like an oasis town. And that was when things got a little bit crazy with the pandemic. Things are starting to, you start to hear things, and we're starting to socially distance from people. And this is also where we found a box of like 6 abandoned puppies that were days old. And we started taking care of them. and we realized that we didn't have the proper equipment to do it. So that's when we left Tafaru and went to the coast. Finally, we finally got to see the Atlantic coast of Morocco. And we waited for another 6 days at a campground waiting for the animal shelter to make space for these puppies to protect them from they have a parvo outbreak at the time.
And to be in a campground with water, because getting water wild camping in Morocco is where we were was impossible.
It was
the
impossible.
desert, and we needed to clean these puppies.
Yeah, and we were running out of water
for ourselves,
like
and for the
multiple
puppies.
times a day.
Yeah.
So by the time the shelter was able to take them in, the country had just gone into lockdown the day before the shelter took them.
Yeah.
So the very next day, we drove all the way back up to northern Morocco to the port of Ceuta, which is a little tiny corner of Morocco across from Gibraltar. You can see Gibraltar really well from there. But Europe or Spain had closed its borders to Morocco. So we were stuck there. And we ended up being stuck there for about a week before a ferry was able to be sent from France. And we paid like 5, 6, 7 times more the price to get back to Europe as it did for us to get there at first. So that ends up being like the last few days before we came back to Croatia. So we ended up back in Croatia this year at the beginning of April. So we were only traveling this year around Europe and Morocco for a little less than 4 months.
Yeah, before everything locked down.
Yeah, so we hadn't really planned. Our original plan was to go see more of Spain and then see as much of Portugal as we have time for, and see some of France in the Bay of Biscay and the Normandy
So much
area.
surfing in the future.
All that surfing that we were supposed to do, we didn't do any of it.
Not one day.
And then this summer, even like right now, we're supposed to be in Scotland and maybe making our way back to be here for my residency renewal in about a month. But instead, we decided coming back to our home base in Croatia was probably the right thing and the safe thing to do, because we can be socially distanced. We don't have to rely on campgrounds or wild camping or anything like that. And we thought this whole time we're in Croatia, we had never planned to be in Croatia for the summer. And Croatia is actually the place to go for the summer for a lot of European tourists.
And that's why we avoid it.
That's why we avoid it.
We don't like crowds.
So we felt like, okay, this might be a really good year to be in Croatia for the summer and kind of have beaches to ourselves. So it turned out that the crowds were still pretty high, and especially the places that we like to go, which is the little family-oriented cove that's in the island of Hvar, where Marlene's family's from, her parents' side's from, her dad's side. It was really crowded. It was as crowded as any year, because I think a lot of people were foregoing visiting big cities and then opting for small villages instead.
Yeah.
So, that didn't quite turn out the way we had imagined, but we still got to explore a good part of Croatia inland, because
It forced us to go out.
it forced us to go inland where it's much, much less crowded. I think we felt a lot more of the lower tourism numbers inland than people did out on the coast.
Yeah,
People
for
still
sure.
came to the coast. So that took us back. So that now, we've been in Croatia for a little over 5 months now, and now we're approaching my residency renewal. So we're going to be here until January at least, and then we'll see how everything goes and see, where we go from there.
What we can do.
If things work out, if traveling is permitted and it's okay to do, we're probably just going to try to redo our plan for last year.
Yeah.
We're going to decide if we're going to go back into Morocco or not, because we don't want to be
We were
stuck there again.
And it was expensive to get out.
And there was a difference between going to a country where you can just drive back versus having to rely on a ferry service that may not be running. So that's it. That's our travel in Europe in 2020. That was probably much longer than we intended. But, it's even for the short 4 months, we did a lot.
Yeah, we did. We saw so many cool things.
It's probably actually January. It's only actually 3 months, right? Because we got back at the beginning of April. So, yeah, we only did 3
Right
months.
into March.
Yeah.
We drove.
So in the traveling community, people tend to label themselves as one type of traveler versus another.
Right.
There are labels like Overlanders, van lifers, full timers, bike packers,
World schoolers.
Right. So there's all these different labels, and ultimately there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of things in common. Mm-hmm. We don't really self-identify with any of them, maybe besides full timer. But even as a full timer, that's kind of a difficult thing to explain. Like, what does that really mean? You know. So really, I think what we do is a combination of several of these, and I think for the most part, everyone is a combination of a few different types of traveling. Mm-hmm. So I want to just kind of explain our rationale and our style of travel.
Why we don't want to label ourselves, or what we do label.
I want to give you guys just some ways that I define these different terms.
It's fine to do anything. It's just us personally.
Yeah.
We don't like to label ourselves.
Well, we have a hard time labeling ourselves one or the other because we don't totally identify with any of them completely. That's the gist of what we're going to talk about in this one, which is like, what kind of traveling do we do? So we can go back to the very beginning. Like we started this lifestyle as just
extended
trips, right? Like, you know, family vacations, sort of, but a little bit longer, mm-hmm. with some pauses in between for the first couple of years when we were raising our first child and becoming pregnant with our second and third child. We paused between the first and the second trimester of each pregnancy, mm-hmm. and then we waited until the baby was born, and we left after like 3 to 5 months from each one after that. And then we were on the road all in between. We kind of eased into it. We didn't go 100%. We didn't get rid of our house in the town that we used to live in.
Yeah, it was gradual. Everything was gradual. There was no like, this is our date and this is our anniversary date. Like we don't really have that like a lot of people have nowadays.
Yeah, so the first couple of years, I even struggled with the term full-timer. You know, I didn't want to say I was a full-timer, even though we were spending more time on the road than we were back at the house, where, you know, we would only stay there like if we were going to the hospital for doctor's visits. Mm-hmm. As the term full-timer, I think what it means, it's people that live in their RV. As a full-timer, you don't even have to travel.
Yeah.
Right? There are full-timers that live in their RV on their own land. There are full-timers that work seasonal jobs, that go to a place and stay for 3-4 months while they work a job, and then go somewhere else for 3-4 months while they work another job, and on and on and on. And then there are full-timers that their goal is not to travel. Their goal is to save money. You know, which is, there's a new movie called Nomadland that's coming out, which has, I think, 3 real full-time van dwellers in this movie. Some of them are really well known, like Cheap RV Living.
Oh, I thought it was all made up. No, it has real people.
Yeah, it has 3 real people that play themselves. Their sort of role in the movie, they act as mentors to Frances McDormand's character. So yeah, I mean, there's that. Those are kind of like your traditional van dwellers before van lifing was a thing, before van lifing was cool. So, you know, these are all, so you can see the term full-timer has a wide range. And then there's van life, and I think van life had just gotten really cool thanks to Foster Huntington, who sort of coined this phrase back in the day. And speaking of which, I think we're in the second
Home is Where You Park It
version, or not the second edition, but
the second book.
The second Home is Where You Park It book, the van life book, even though we were in our 4-wheel camper. So van life started out as like young people seeing what these van dwellers were doing and say, yeah, that's great. I want to travel like that too. And buying vans, converting them, and then living in them, going surfing, going climbing, going skiing, doing all these different things. And as you guys know, since then, van lifing has become this, you know, multi-billion-dollar industry where Airstream is selling, I think their most recent van that they're selling, the Atlas, is $260,000. And that is not what a van lifer at the beginning was doing.
Right.
I mean, even our van, we bought ours new, and that's $60,000. But it makes sense for us because, this is what we live in, and $60,000 is a very cheap place to buy to live. And we have
compared to a house.
Yeah, and
in California.
We have careers and we've had good jobs and we can afford this. But if you're just like a college grad in your early 20s and you just want to spend a couple years traveling, and that's sort of where this kind of van life thing.
Yeah, it's like an alternative to backpacking to Europe. Like instead of like, okay, I just finished school, let's go backpack. It's like, let's get a van converted and drive around.
In the 90s and maybe even before that in the 80s, 70s, taking a year off after college and going backpacking across Europe and getting your Eurorail pass and even hitchhiking was like the thing. A bunch of our friends did it, So I think that van life had become that for this new generation. So we're not those people. Like we're not we don't identify with van lifers. But of course, so much of what they do, we have in common too. And we come across them when we travel and we stay at the same places. We hang out, with the same people a lot of the times. And we're
a little older.
We're older than your sort of Instagram van life person. And, and also a lot of these younger people don't have kids. It's interesting now because it's been a thing for so long. Now, a lot of these van life couples have gotten married and a lot of them are having kids. So I feel like there's like you can do it with kids. Look at these people, and some of them will point to us. So that's how we sort of identify with van life and also not as well. And then there's overlanding. Like we never consider ourselves overlanders. We actually never even heard the term overlanding until years and years and years into our travels. So really the only time that we ever heard of it is when we decided to downsize our Airstream, and then we decided to buy a four-wheel camper with our truck because we already had the truck, or we still need a truck to tow our Airstream because we didn't sell our Airstream, and we wanted something small, and then we bought this four-wheel camper after doing some research, and it turns out it's a super popular camper and vehicle for overlanders. And then we started to kind of be lumped into this overlanding category. And because we're going to Baja, because we're going to mainland Mexico, and we had met a bunch of people through that who had done the Pan American drive all the way down to Tierra del Fuego and all the way up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. So that kind of became a thing. And then when we decided that we were going to ship our vehicle to Europe, and I think it's also because that we had been so accustomed to having the ability to have four-wheel drive where we don't feel as concerned driving on dirt roads or soft sand, and we felt like four-wheel drive was a worthwhile upgrade to pay for. And suddenly like a four-wheel drive Sprinter continued to lump us into these overlander category, even though we don't particularly feel like we're overlanders. Because all the overlanders, and this is not obviously everybody, but a lot of the overlanders that we've talked to and met, they're very sort of goal oriented. Like we want to drive around the world, or we want to drive the Pan American Highway, or we want to, do the Silk Road.
It's more of a trip than
a life. Yeah. So for us, this is what we do. Like we work on the road. We have a sustainable way of living on the road. That's how we identify as full-timers. We're in a van. That's how we identify as van lifers. And we go on these more off-the-grid adventure trips, like when we went to Nordkapp, Norway, or we went to, these remote places in Greece and Turkey.
And
Morocco, and Baja and Mexico. We go on all these different types of adventures in our full-time living that overlanders would go on. So that's why I think for us it's been difficult to really identify. We've had a lot of trouble identifying who we are. And in every part of this, not only do we feel like that it's hard time for us to identify, I also feel like that a true overlander will look at us and say, "Oh, you guys aren't overlanding.
We don't have that shovel."
Yeah, we don't even have our sand ladder anymore.
It's too much trouble. Let's just
too much
leave
stuff
it at
to
my
carry.
parents' house.
Right. We don't, we're not necessarily van lifers.
We don't check all the boxes of everything.
Right.
So what do we say? What's our thing?
We do our own thing.
But we say we're just living on the road.
Right.
We're not living in a house, we're living on the road. So all the things we normally do, we just do it from this vehicle.
Recently, we just talked to somebody on the phone who, they're Austrians, and they had shipped their big truck to Australia and then Thailand and then to North America, and they were doing this overlanding trip. And then they were forced to come back to Europe, to Austria, because their 6-month visa had run out in North America or in US, and they had to come back. They had nowhere to go. They couldn't go into Canada. So they came back and said, "Oh yeah, how much longer? When are you guys going back to the US?" And we're like, "Oh, we're thinking maybe 2 more years after having already been here 2 years."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? Why?"
Why are you
That's
here?
what he said. He said, "Why?" And then a lot of people have told us, there are so many other countries that are not as developed as Europe and North America. You should go see those first before they change. But for us, it's like we're not so goal oriented in a way that like we gotta go see Cuba before it turns into something. We gotta go see this before it turns into something. I will see the country or whatever place we're at when we get there and see what it's like at that point. Because if we go see it now, well, maybe you want to see it again after or later. A perfect example is the United States is super developed. Europe is super developed, but we're still finding very great remote places that you can go to.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like there's a need to rush and go see these things, especially if it means that you have to do it in a short period of time.
And I think it's like we started this lifestyle gradually. Like we didn't like sell all our crap and hit the road,
Right.
And I think our travel has progressed to that same gradual feeling. Like we started in California, we did like a little loop to Florida and back. And then we went like north and back and kind of the Midwest. And then we were considering Alaska, but we didn't go to the Northeast yet. So let's do that. So we gradually accumulated 48 states. And then we're like, we did this. So now let's go to Alaska.
Yeah.
Oh, we finished that. Okay, let's go to Mexico now. And then, gradually we ended up in Europe. And
even after Alaska, Canada, Mexico, Newfoundland, Labrador, even after going to all these places in 2017, the year before Europe, we're like, I just want to do the West. I just want to do the western states of U.S. one more year.
Yeah.
See how we feel, because I really love this area, so I really just want to do this one more time, even though we've been there for like 9 years at this point. I just want to do it one more time. So we took our 4-wheel camper, we drove around, places, and then we went to even more places that we hadn't been to before because our Airstream was too big. So I really do feel like our 10 years spent in North America exploring was not too much time. In fact, I think people do more,
Yeah, we didn't see
There's
everything.
so much more you can see.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like, it really like, it doesn't make sense for me for people to say, why are you here for so long? Well, what did you do there for so long? My mentality was always, there's not enough time to see it all. I feel like after 4 years of Europe, we're still not going to be comfortable with what we've seen.
We're still worried about how we're going to get down to Italy and back.
Well, how much Italy we're going to see, we're going to get to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's, and I think part of that has to do with us having built a sustainable way to travel. Like we have diversified our income, where we are able to make money. We have people that we can rely on for mail, like mail goes to your parents' house now. We've had used mail delivery services in the past. So we have these mechanisms and systems that we've put together that help, with this lifestyle for it to be sustainable. So we don't have to save up, travel for a year, stop, save up again, travel for a year, stop, save up again. So not only are we able to travel full time, in fact, we're just living like this. When you're just living in a house, nobody ever says, "Oh, you lived in LA for so long. Why?" People live in one place. So many people live in one place for their whole lives, and nobody asks them why. So for us, it's like, hey, we want to stay in Europe. In fact, for the last 2 years, we've basically have always just thought, what, we're not just on a trip here in Europe. We're living in Europe right now.
Yeah, and we dialed it in where we built our life on how to make ourselves happy and all the different puzzle pieces that allow us to stay on this road, and it allows us to slow travel. Like we're not in a rush. we're not in a rush to get to some point because we have limited time or money. That's probably why it takes us so long to get anywhere, because we're just comfortable working, doing school, and all that stuff takes time, and you can't drive every day when you have to do those other things.
But I really look forward, because like in the U.S., where we'll go back to California and Arizona area every winter, not just for holidays, but for the better like warmer weather too. We kind of have that same routine now in Europe. We come back to Croatia. Now, Croatia just happens to be a really good central location. Like this year, we don't know if we're gonna, if everything's more or less back to normal to a certain extent, we'll go back out to Spain and Portugal. But just the other day, we said, hey, maybe we'll go back to Greece again, because we spent 2 months in Greece last year, but I don't feel like we've seen enough.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how our mind works. We don't set a lot of goals. We don't have a huge amount of planning involved. We set a general direction, and we just kind of go with that when the time comes. But everything's subject to change, like up until the last minute. So.
And that works for us.
And
it
I know
doesn't work for everybody, but that's.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line is don't let these labels define who you are and how you travel. Just find the way that works for you.
Yeah.
Even if it means a lot of people won't understand it, but that's okay.
Figure out how you can be happy for yourself.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about layouts. Why we chose the layouts we have in our van and in our campers that we've owned in the past, and what we've learned from them, and how we can maybe provide some advice on how other people might decide.
Right, different things to think about.
Yeah, different things that may work for them. So layouts, what we've realized, we've owned 5 different campers. 4 of them we've bought ready built. The van is the only one that we built ourselves. But because we went through these 4 different campers that have significantly different layouts, one from the other, we realized what we needed and what we didn't need, what was important, what wasn't. It's easy to do that because we live in it full time, but it's also important to kind of figure out, what works for you, and especially if you're going to downsize, what to get rid of. If you're upgrading, getting a bigger camper every time and always adding more space, it doesn't matter as much. I think if you're starting out with like a pickup truck with a shell, and you just have a bed in the back, and then you're upgrading to a truck camper, and then up to a trailer, and up to a fifth wheel, and up to a motorhome, this is probably not the topic that you care about. But for those of you that want to travel into harder to get to places, and you're realizing having to downsize is the way to do it, then this may be important to you. And also, if you are living in your camper full time, this is also important to you, because I feel like if you're just doing it part time, a few weeks or even a few months at a time, or even for just like a year, and then you go back to a house, you can do it in anything. I think anybody can live a year. You can live a year in a tent, set it up every night if you wanted to. But to build something, to choose a layout that works for you for the foreseeable future, long term, I think that's the tricky one. And for us, or for me, you can tell me if you agree or not.
Okay.
What makes sense for us is to figure out what your lifestyle requires you to do. For example, like, do you need to work? Do you need a desk? Do you have to shower every day for personal reasons, or maybe they have to go into the office? Maybe they live in their car, but then they work in an office. Do you have a lot of gear that you have to carry? Or do you have mountain bikes, or do you rock climb? Do you paraglide, or do you do all this other stuff? So those are all things that you have to figure out. But for us, what we figured out is based on like how much time do we spend each day doing certain things. So obviously, for most people, you're going to spend probably the biggest block of your time sleeping. And then the next block of your time sitting down. And then the next block of your time just standing around doing chores, washing dishes, cooking, or organizing, or whatever. right? So you actually spend quite a small part of your day, or we spend quite a small part of our day going to the bathroom, taking showers, and
even though there's 5 of us and all those little times add up,
it's true.
doesn't
It's true.
add up to other things we do.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a lot of people for that bathroom to be occupied full time. We're not quite there yet. I don't think we're gonna. I mean, we're never gonna get there.
No.
So that's when we decided. So our Airstream had a full-time bed, had a couch that converted to a bed, and had a dining table that converted to a bed. We decided that converting that dining table to the bed was never something we liked to do.
No.
So we knew right away that was our second camper actually. The first time we lived in full-time.
Yeah.
That we never wanted a dinette. Actually, we ended up having a dinette that converts to a table, but we hated doing that in the truck camper. And we had a shower. We had a bathroom. The bathroom was separated. Yeah, with a hallway in the middle. The bathroom, the toilet we used, we realized that in the next camper, that was space that was better utilized doing something else. In the shower, we actually ended up just storing stuff in most of the time in the Airstream.
The kids were really little, so we had like a play center and boxes of diapers and their toys.
Yeah, you open the shower door, it's like
the broom falls
stuff crammed in there sideways. So every time we want to take a shower, all the stuff had to come out. They'd go on the bed or go on the couch or something. So, we didn't. So we realized, okay, forget showers. Like those are the things. If we're going to downsize, those go. So in our 4-wheel camper, we didn't get a shower. We didn't get a toilet. You have a sink already for your kitchen. Some people don't like brushing their teeth at the kitchen sink, but
that was a weird for me to like. The idea of spitting my toothpaste into where my dishes go, but then I got
and then
over
you realize you
it
can just wash it, clean it, go down the drain.
We're not gross. Don't listen
We're not
to
gross.
him.
Yeah. So, we ditched the bathroom, the full-time bathroom. We didn't need that. We ditched the shower. We didn't need that. We ended up just we'll do a video where we talk about different ways that we shower at some point.
We shower, but we just don't shower.
Yeah, we shower outside.
Well, we do.
We've showered inside too.
Yeah. That's
we figured out.
Video. That's a
we figured out how to put a tub in the middle of the floor and a curtain around us and just pour warm water over our heads.
It's awesome.
So you can shower, but you spend so little time of your day showering. Anyways, why dedicate such a large space?
And when you say we don't have a toilet, we do have a toilet, but it's not a permanent installed toilet. With its own
we don't have a room
area. Yeah.
that our toilet lives in.
We have a portable toilet.
Yeah. So those two are the things to go. What we felt was important is full-time beds. Because there are 5 people, it's important for everybody to be able to just go to their bed and lay down and relax whenever they want it, especially if we have long driving days. In a house or in an apartment, you don't feel like that. Oh, if I want to sit down and relax, I sit on the couch. I don't sit down and relax on the bed. We didn't used to. Now we do. We're in Marlene's parents' apartment in Split, Croatia right now. We want to relax. We go lay down in our bed because we're used to doing that in the van, in the camper.
Couch?
So you'll soon realize, that bed is important. When it's not made, and when it's converted to something else, it's really annoying because somebody wants to lay down, they can't do it.
But I think to go back, like our first full-time trailer was an Airstream. We didn't have a permanent bed for everybody.
No.
We had one for ourselves, but for the kids, there was a pack and play. There was a gaucho couch.
Which is like a futon thing.
And then co-sleeping. So there was always movement of pillows and comforters and pack and plays. And then when we went to the 4-wheel camper, the kids had a permanent bed. Well, we had to pop it up to get in, but they have a permanent bed. But ours was our dinette also. Yeah. So that was annoying to do. So most of the time that was
we just kept it in bed.
Which was bad for you because you didn't have a desk that you wanted on the dinette. And that's what caused us to get a casita trailer to tow behind. So we could live in there and you can leave the dinette in desk mode for you to work in the 4-wheel camper.
Right.
But then we're towing something and we didn't like that feeling again. And in the casita, we still converted Luca's bed. So
which was the easiest thing to convert of all the things.
But you're still like, where do I put this pillow? Yeah. Mom, I want to lay down in my own bed. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was annoying again. But with the Sprinter now that we built out, permanent beds for the first time in our 12 years.
Everybody lay down whenever they want all the time.
It's so awesome.
And we still have a way for me to sit down and work at a desk now that we have the Lagoon table set up and the swivel seats in the front.
Yeah, so it's the first time that we had both.
Yeah.
That we needed.
So if you haven't seen our van tour, we have a van tour video up on our YouTube channel, on our Molly Mish YouTube channel. You can go check that out. Mm-hmm. So you can see how the layout, how the bed is set up, and how the seats swivel, and how we have like the lounge area in the front.
I mean, like, if we made a convertible bed, we could have had way more awesome pictures in the back of the van with scenery and us sitting there and like, oh, look how pretty this is. But for living on the road like we do, that is, for us to last this way, like, make everything so easy and simple, and then you could focus on the other things that we need to do daily.
And I think a lot of complaints, when you do hear about them, it's about, the different ways that people live. Even if you're a couple, some couples, like, one of them likes to stay up late, one of them likes to go to bed early, one of them likes to sit on the bed and work, one of them likes to sit on the couch and work. So it's like, if you have your bed that also converts to a couch, one person is always going to be unhappy. So to be able to have permanent beds, I think is a really good idea if you have a camper that can support that setup. So, in thinking about a lot of the stuff, of course, there are other layouts that could work in this situation too. It's just, we like our layout, and it was a very simple way to put it together, and we had a short amount of time to do it. Mm-hmm. And we built it really strong, so even after 2 years, there's hardly any wear and tear that we've seen.
I'm not worried about it collapsing on us.
No, it's probably too strong. In fact, we use 3/4 inch plywood instead of 1/2 inch ply, so it's one of the reasons why we're probably heavier than we need it to be. But that's better safe than sorry. So so we're happy with the layout. And bottom line is, when you decide to build your own camper, figure out the layout. Keep all these different things in mind. How much time do you spend doing the things that you have to do every day, and make those your priority? And if having a shower is a huge priority for you, by all means, build a shower. You'll be happy that you did. If having a full-time, toilet room with a door that shuts is important to you, by all means, do that. It wasn't our priority, but it doesn't mean it's not right for you. But as long as you're thinking about these different things and, what may make a difference for you, your happiness long-term while you're living this thing, then do it the way you want. There's not one right way to do it, which is why I think when you see a lot of factory-built vans and they all end up looking the same, there's a lot of compromises that these factory vans have to do. These factory vans have to build layouts that accommodate multiple people. So that's what you end up seeing a lot of these things that kind of are a compromise one way or another. Like, oh, we want to make this bed on a, with a motorized lift that goes up and down. Sure, that's great. It goes out of the way. You can have your couch underneath, or you can have your bikes underneath and go. But when it's up, people can't lay down. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to have it down all the time, then why have the complicated mechanism that goes up and down and expensive and heavy and difficult to maintain potentially anyways. So okay, so we have been asked several times about getting access to our cash that are in U.S. banks while we're traveling internationally. And I think it's less of a problem when you're just traveling on a short trip, when you're going on vacation for a couple weeks to Europe and you say, hey, you know what? Maybe I'll just bring a bunch of cash with me, or I'll just exchange it at the airport and have enough for the time that I'm there. But if you're going to travel, if you're going to live in another country internationally, and you have your bank in your country that you're from, it can be tricky to go from one bank to another. Or in Europe especially, like a lot of places don't accept most of my credit cards. And the ones that do, usually there's a foreign transaction fee where you're getting dinged a couple percent every time, or use the ATM, you're getting dinged here and there.
Yeah, if you live full time, that's a lot of dings.
It ends up being very expensive for sure. So we want to talk about just how we kind of get by that. And we don't necessarily get by it, but we have found banks and services that make this much less painful for us. Some things we're able to do because we have residency here in Croatia. For example, we have a monthly plan on our cell phone in Croatia, but you can only do that if you're a Croatian resident.
Right.
Because you have to open a bank account. And to open a bank account, you have to have their equivalent of like a social security number here. So we have that and we can do that. But obviously you don't have, countries that, outside of Croatia, we can still go and we don't have to worry about that. But I wanted to share with you guys some of the services, like the banks that I use. When we decided to go down to Mexico, Canada wasn't such a problem for some reason. We never really thought about, because every time we went to Canada, it was only for a couple months at a time,
and I
at
think
the
we always
most.
pay with credit card. We weren't worried about cash like in Mexico and a lot of Europe.
We spent 6 months straight in Mexico, and then we came back, and then we basically spent an equivalent of about 10 months out of a 12-month period in Mexico. So we had to figure out how to efficiently get access to our cash while we're down there, because I was still working as a freelancer for a U.S. company and actually as a full-time employee for a while. So my money was getting deposited into my U.S. bank account. And what I did is, before we went to Mexico, is I opened up a Charles Schwab investment account. And with an investment account, you don't have to deposit any money into your investment account. You can open an investor savings account that's tied to it. And with that, you get an ATM card. And what the investment savings account of Charles Schwab allows you to do is it allows you to take money out of your account at any ATM without paying any fees or foreign transaction fee. It's just a benefit that they have. It's kind of like their teaser that gets people to invest your money through their investment services. You don't have to. We've had this Charles Schwab account for going on 5 years now. I don't use Charles Schwab as my stock brokerage, but I still have my savings account with them, and I still use it every day. When I need to get money, that's where I get my money out of. You do get, when you go to an ATM, it will say, okay, this ATM is going to charge you a certain amount, and you just accept it. And what Charles Schwab does, they detect all these fees that you get charged, and they reimburse you every month. And I think there's an upper limit on how much they'll reimburse, but I've never hit that limit. I think it was pretty high. I'm not sure exactly what it is, $25 a month or something. So that's never happened. And when I go to the ATM, I generally take out enough money to last us a couple weeks. So I'm only going like 2-3 times at the most to the ATM when we're in Mexico anyways.
Yeah, maybe it's $3, so it's not more than $10.
No,
so
it's
you're not
not
close
more.
to that limit.
Not even close. So that's worked out really, really, really well. The thing that you do have to be a little bit aware of is it would be difficult to get the ATM card replaced if you were to lose it, or if it got demagnetized, or if if it was cloned and there was a fraud, you had to cancel it. It's difficult to get mail. So this goes into this whole other side of how to get mail, which internationally it's much, much harder than getting mail within the United States. We haven't really figured out a good way yet. Basically you just have to ask family and friend to send stuff over. So for us, we've been using the Charles Schwab service. It's been really great. But there's also a couple other things that we use. Oh, so just so for the logistics and the behind the scenes in Charles Schwab, I try to keep a certain amount of money in there. I think it's around $1,000. Every time I withdraw, I instantly go to my regular bank and transfer that money back to replenish it, to top it off at that amount, whatever that amount it is for you. So for me, it always takes like 4 working days for that money to show up. So you really have to stay on top of this. When you withdraw money, you want to make sure you transfer it over right away, because it'll take 4 working days to get there. And if you come across an emergency where you have to take out a lot of money, you may be stuck with no cash for up to 4 working days until you can get that money transferred over. And I think that may have happened to us once.
Yeah, it sounds familiar all of a sudden.
That may have happened to us once in Oaxaca. So, keep in mind that either if you think you're going to need more money coming up, just transfer more money into it ahead of time, and then you'll have money to withdraw. Otherwise, there's no need to keep a high balance in there. Just keep your balance wherever you normally keep your account. Just tie those banks together so you can transfer back and forth. So that's Charles Schwab, really useful. And then the other 2 services I want to talk about on this one is called a service called TransferWise. It's not a U.S. company. I want to say it's from like Australia or Europe or something.
I have no idea.
I don't really know, so don't quote me on that. But TransferWise is a service that you can use to transfer from one bank to another bank across countries. So also across currencies too. These things are getting kind of popular, especially we see people use that a lot in Europe. But there are some occasionally at the beginning of your using the service, there may be some red flags raised because they really worry about money laundering in Europe. So when they don't want to see you like transferring a large amount of money from a U.S. account to a account in Europe, for example.
Right.
And sometimes they'll want you to call them. Or the first times I've had to email or call them once to say, hey, no, this is just me living here now. I want to transfer money over. So we had to do that once.
Trying to pay our phone bill.
Just trying to pay our bills. So we have our, like I said earlier, Marlene has her bank account. She opened a bank account with her social security number here in Croatia, and with that we're able to open our cell phone plan, cell phone monthly account. So we kind of do the same thing there. We use TransferWise to transfer money from my U.S. bank account to our Croatian bank account. It does cost a fee. I think it's like 2% maybe. But we also don't do this very often, so it's not that big a deal. You don't get reimbursed for that. That's how these people make money. So TransferWise allows us to transfer money directly. You can also go through your Charles Schwab, withdraw cash from the ATM, and then take that cash and then just use that to pay for your phone bill, or use that to deposit into a foreign bank account so you can have money in that account to pay. In Croatia, they have this really cool, like, strange looking barcode thing that everybody uses. All the banking apps, the phone apps, and all these different apps, you just scan this barcode and then it just pays that bill for you automatically.
It's really easy.
So that's why we like using the balance. Well, that's why we like transferring money into her account and pay from there.
Yeah. And I just first time we heard about TransferWise, another traveler like sent us a link, like kind of like an affiliate link, and it sounded kind of scammy in the beginning. But we totally use it and it's not scammy. It just sounds because everybody in their affiliate links.
I know.
Us included.
We have affiliate links too.
But
we're not trying to like trick people into clicking, When it's affiliate link, we make it very clear.
No, but when we first heard about it, it was an affiliate link, so it made me not want to trust it.
Yeah.
But it's a legit thing people travel.
We use it at least every month.
Yeah.
If not a couple times a month. And then recently, this last year, I also found this other service called Revolut. It's similar to TransferWise, I guess. Like both TransferWise and Revolut have a lot of overlap. But what Revolut has that's kind of cool is Revolut lets you generate virtual credit card numbers. So the thing tricky about buying stuff in other countries versus the US is that some services you can only buy with credit cards that are issued in that country's currency. So if I want to use a credit card in some countries and pay for like a monthly service or just buy something online through their online website, US credit cards sometimes won't work.
Yeah.
So this Revolut service will let you generate a virtual credit card number in that country's currency using your balance in your Revolut account. So that's pretty cool because then you can use that. For example, we could have used this. We didn't have this when we were in Norway. We could have used this to top off our Finland cell plan. Had we had it. Yeah, because we were trying to renew. We were in Norway for 2 months, and we wanted to renew our our Nordic phone plan that we bought in Finland, which is good all over the Nordic, Norway included, but we couldn't do it because we were in Norway. And we tried to do it with our credit card. We couldn't put money in. And we ended up having to drive all the way back to Finland to do it. But had we had Revolut at the time, that would have worked for us. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing that they do is they'll actually give you a physical credit card too in the mail. And you can use that, just like you do anything else. And now in Europe, I think the US is starting to catch up. They do a lot of this contactless credit cards.
Yeah, nobody has a chip. Every time you pay with your credit card, you're like, has a chip.
Yeah, sorry, you have to put the chip in. You have to touch this thing. And they have
to find a pen because they're not used to people signing.
Yeah, right. With the contactless one, you never have to sign. With the chip one, you have to sign sometimes.
Yeah.
And we were in Germany last year. We went to the Air Force Base. We went to Ramstein Air Force Base just to eat at the Taco Bell there.
As you do.
Yeah, of course. You pay with dollars there, and everything's like American when we went to the Air Force Base. So I was blown away because after a year and a half of traveling Europe, I hadn't seen this. They actually still swiped the credit card at the machine, which nobody does here anymore. Yeah. Actually, I don't even think there are machines that have little slots for swiping anymore. So yeah, that's something you have to keep in mind of. So when you come to Europe, if you want to use one of your credit cards, find a credit card that doesn't charge foreign transaction fees. Find a credit card that's made for travelers. We use the Chase Sapphire Preferred card, which is great. We got a bunch of points when we first signed up, and then we got a bunch of points from just traveling. They always have different specials that get you like triple points or whatever. We actually end up buying this camera with all the points.
I was just gonna say I don't think we used the points.
No, because our Sony A7 III camera microphone port died when we were trying to make a bunch of videos, and then we ended up buying this Sony A6600 with our Chase Sapphire credits, and we basically got the camera from using that credit card.
Sounds like this is like sponsored, but it's not. You just sound very sponsory all of a sudden.
But again, having these credit cards means that if you need to get a renewal, if you get a fraud detected and you have to cancel the card, get a new card, that could be hairy. So keep in mind those are things that are trickier to do. It takes time, obviously, for a new card to get here. Somebody has to be at your mailing address in the U.S. to receive the card, activate it, or I don't know, maybe they don't activate it, but send it to you. Yeah. So
it's good to have backups.
It's good to have backups. So we have TransferWise, Revolut. They sort of back each other up a little bit. Mm-hmm. We have our Chase Sapphire credit card, and then I have my Charles Schwab ATM card, which is also a Visa card. So that backs us up a little bit. I can have two cards to choose from. But then also, I can always just get cash out with my Schwab account. Mm. So that's been working out really good. And also now we have your Croatian bank account, and we can always transfer money to it directly from my U.S. bank account to your Croatian account through TransferWise, and then get cash out that way if we had to. Yeah. So anyways, having a bunch of choices is what we're trying to say here. And also some of these are kind of unique features that these accounts have that you guys may want to check out. So there'll be a blog post on Freely Roaming that has all this stuff linked.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys can go check it out. So that's it. I hope you guys like this new format of our podcast.
Yeah, we're going to try to have 5 questions.
Yeah, and one of them might be an interview.
Right. I'm going to contact some travelers that we've met and haven't met, and we'll try to have that as the 5th question for every podcast.
And we have some suggestions from you guys on Instagram on people you'd like us to interview. We're going to reach out to them for sure. If you have any other people that you'd like us to talk to and ask them about how they live their life on the road or how they travel, it doesn't have to be on the road with a vehicle. Yeah. Could be by boat, could be by bike, by airplane by spaceship, whatever you want, right? I mean, spaceship traveling is a thing now, thanks to Elon Musk.
Maybe make the hashtag.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast episode 15 of the Freely Roaming podcast with Molly Mish.
That's us.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.